Hi, everyone, and welcome. I am Julia Damchek, Senior Alumni and Engagement Officer here at Northwood. Thank you for joining us today for our Northwood University monthly Alumni and Friends webinar. I would like to also welcome our guests for the month of August, our President, Kent MacDonald. Before we begin, if you have any questions during today's webinar, please use the Q&A feature to submit them, and we will have time after President MacDonald's presentation to address hopefully all of the questions. And as always, please remember we record the webinar and we will distribute it to you via email, and we'll also distribute it to those who were not able to join us today. So without any further ado, again, our presenter today is Northwood University President Kent MacDonald. He is going to share his State of the University address with us. As you all, I'm sure you all know, Dr. MacDonald joined us in 2019, and before joining Northwood, he led St. Francis Xavier University and Algonquin College, both in Canada. The floor, or screen, sorry, is yours, Dr. MacDonald.
Great, thanks, Julie. Hi, everybody. We have a short time together, and my hope is to roll through a number of slides, not to have you really go through them, but just use them as a backdrop to allow me to tell a story about where Northwood has been and where we're going. Certainly some of the priorities as we as a team see them now. I will say as well that it's our 60th anniversary of Auto Show, and I sure hope to see a lot of you back on campus shortly. So next slide, Dale. If I could ask everyone on the call just to think back in their minds to where they were when they were 30 years old. I know for Mary Ellen and I, we had a couple kids. We had both full-time jobs. We were trying to make enough money to feed those kids and pay bills and put a few dollars aside for grad school. But we certainly had the benefit of stability and security of being employees at the time. There were a couple of young people, next slide, Dale, that had things on their mind at that point. It was 1959, January 1st. And the Stoffers and the Turners were living not far from where Northwood is at this point. But on January 1st that year, that's when some call them rebels. I sometimes refer to them as terrorists, Che Guevara and Castro. They took over Cuba on that day, and shortly thereafter, they had a band of rebels name, but in short course, it became the Communist Party of Cuba. Just 5 days later, next slide, Dale, not at all close to the short distance between Florida and Cuba, but rather halfway around the world, President Khrushchev was hosting, imagine this, more than 70 countries from around the world were arriving in Moscow for their annual communist meetings that would last for weeks. And he welcomed half the countries in the world at that time. And so, next slide, Dale, what the Stoffers and the Turners said was, well, we could sit idly by as the world moves towards more of a communist socialist disposition. And they said, we're not going to do that. They gave up what was their security at the time, one of them being just 29 years old, and one just over 33, I believe Dr. Turner was. And so they said, we need to rethink how we are educating people. And it was from that vision in their leadership that they decided we are going to launch a new university. And that's what they did in 1959. 2 years later, we were on this campus here in Midland. Next slide, Dale. How did all of that work? Well, some of you on the call may remember these two iconic faculty members, Haywood and Watts, and the impact that those professors had on our students at that time. And so as any small startup, the Stoffers and the Turners and those formative stages of Northwood, it was an important moment in the history of higher education in this country. But it wasn't easy. So if you were to fast forward 10 years when they had their startup or their launch, Mr. Turner wrote to Mr. Stoffer, and you can see some of these words if you go to Founders Garden right here on campus. There's a plaque that has the entire letter, but it was a decade after the start of Northwood. We're now at 1969, and I walked the campus not long ago, and I pulled off some of these words that President Turner wrote, and he said, "It was a grand dream, wasn't it? Think of those first few kids who came to us, sharers in the dream, who staked their futures on us, two half-baked young guys about to start a college on a shoestring and an idea." And so they were dreamers. And so when you think back of where we started and what was happening on the planet at that point, and it was this strong move towards a socialist state, the antithesis of what the country was built on, and certainly the antithesis of what their view of what made America the country that it is. And so, next slide, Dale. If we now go from 1959 to where we are now, where do we stand? Where are we as an institution? And so certainly we continue to have thought leaders on this campus, Dale, and Dr. Nash, Dr. Matchuk are just two of those professors, but we continue to seek out faculty members who still have the view that the Stoffers and Turners did so many years ago. In fact, just this morning, just today, there was an article that did come out written by an alumnus, Dan DeVos, along with Tim Nash and another businessman from Ohio. I encourage you to look at it, and it's essentially wrapped up in this article that we are going to continue to suffer the high interest rates and some of the economic challenges that we're having, and then all of corollary negative societal impacts when those things occur, by rejecting people like Friedman, of which we still have in front of the introductory comments in our seminal volume that Tim and others have written. So where did we go from 59, 62 to where we are today? And all of you are well aware of this thing that we refer to as the Northwood idea. And as alum and supporters of this institution, there's no doubt in my mind that that you are observing what is happening on most campuses across the country, and what's happening is certainly not what we're committed to here at Northwood in terms of these key elements of what we think we need to represent in our mission and our purpose, and that is this unequivocal support of democratic capitalism and free enterprise, that we think that we can do this as a society, not by having centralized government, the elites telling us how they feel that we should operate, start our companies, innovate. So we need limited government in our life. The rule of law will always need to exist. And the one that I skipped over there, personal responsibility, is probably one of the things that has struck me so clearly at my time at Northwood, is that if we can continue to develop young people who understand that it is their responsibility to create their path, to put their thumbprint on our communities to be more economically, socially prosperous, that they can own their future, we liberate them to do remarkable things. And so I was inspired by a quote from our 16th president, President Lincoln, in the very early part of his first term, when he said, when you have to establish who you are and what you want to do as individuals and as a society, put your feet in the right place and stand firm. And the reason I wanted to share this with you is that as we're looking at where Northwood fits among 4,500 colleges and universities, it is extremely important, in our view, to make sure that we have our feet in the right place and that we are going to be unequivocal in terms of how we're standing and what we represent, that being the Northwood idea. And we know that it's not for everybody, but those people who don't believe in free enterprise and the things that we stand for, they're going to be okay because they have 4,500 colleges that they can choose from in this country. And so you're going to see as alum even stronger messaging in terms of what sets us apart from other institutions. So what are the results of this in our short time? And by the way, August 1st was my anniversary at Northwood, so I'm now in my 5th year, and it's just life goes really, really quickly. So let me just share some of the results by becoming even stronger of who we are as an institution. Number one is, as you look across the landscape, particularly in the Midwest today, followed by the Northeast part of the country, there is a clear movement towards fewer people going to colleges and universities. And as the result of that, we have seen a significant decline in the number of young people who either are graduating from high school who are choosing where to go. This is particularly devastating for young men, by the way. The rate of non-participating in colleges and universities is significant. That needs to be addressed going forward. What's the situation at Northwood? As we have taken on a number of different strategies and a new strategic plan, is you'll be pleased to know that our first year enrollment is actually up 20%. If you could go back, Dale, that'd be great. So we're up 20%. Over first year enrollment last year. In fact, it's actually closer to 30%, and we have done that in a number of different ways, and reaching out to much more specifically to various schools and individuals in areas that we think are more likely to be attractive to what we stand for. So that's an incredibly successful number for us. I'm proud of the team. It's telling me that we have the right messaging, we have new academic programming in place, and people are looking at what are they getting in terms of the return on their investment by going off to college. And Northwood has a tremendous track record, and as an alum, this is really important for you because the currency of your degree is only as strong and relevant as the strength of the last outgoing class of graduates. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we're preparing students just the same as you were prepared. So first year enrollment is going to be up this year. Next slide is that when you look at the second, third, and fourth year enrollment, and it's in a very large number, including the DeVos schools. So not only are we attracting undergraduate students, we're attracting more graduate students in a number of new graduate programs, including our doctoral program, of which we had our first graduate this past May. So up in undergraduate, significant. Up in graduate by projecting of 13%, which is significant. And then that leads us to what are we doing internationally? In our mission statement, it states that we are developing free enterprise leaders who drive a global economic and social change. And so in order to do that, we need to make sure that we set our sights outside of beautiful Midland and beautiful Michigan. And so we have committed in our current strategic plan to have 10 international program centers. You're probably familiar with some of those in China and Sri Lanka, Switzerland, but we're currently in discussions, and Ras Al Khaimah, which is one of the 7 United Arab Emirates. We're currently in discussions, and I'll be visiting some of these locations because of the good work that Mamiko Reeves and Dr. Lance Lewis have been able to complete. But Ireland and France, we're looking at right now, Portugal, and several others. And that the reason that that's important for us is it extends our mission in terms of who we are and our commitment to free enterprise, particularly in those countries that are not aligned in our way of thinking. It also is a Trojan horse for us to attract more international students, maybe not for 4 years, but who will come onto our campus. And quite frankly, that makes the experience for all students more rich and vibrant, hearing different people's opinions. When I talk about diversity on a campus, diversity is extremely important. What I'm most committed to is diversity of thought and opinion, that we have people debating in a civil discourse in terms of what are the challenges that we're facing as a country and as citizens of the world. So how does all that play itself out in terms of our academic success? This last year has been an incredible period for us. We continue to do extremely well in our mock trial team, some of our business professional business competitions. And this year, imagine that these 2 young women, both from Michigan, both juniors going into their senior year, that they would win not only the regional, the national, but they would go on to win the international DECA championship. And this is competing, there's no Division 1, 2, and 3. This is competing against all schools, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of schools that have DECA teams. So very, very pleased with what's happening in our classrooms and preparing our students to compete at an academic level. Not only academically, imagine this little place in Midland being a world champion in our esports program. We'll have nearly 100 students who are coming in who either compete or support our esports programming, but also these are students who are studying perhaps esports, but marketing and supply chain, etc. And again, these young individuals, we have won 2 world championships in the last year. So why would someone want to come to us, Northwood, when our, as we've indicated, our enrollment is up, that we're competing academically, that we're competing in non-academic events as well? A lot of it has to do with the return on investment on what they're prepared to pay to come to a private university and all the benefits that they'll accrue at being at a private university, but they need to know that it's going to make their life better. And at some universities, there's this ongoing debate about what is the purpose of the university, and certainly critical thinking skills and problem solving. Those things are important. But I think that conversation is entrenched in 1950, when only 5% of people, the elites, would go off to a college or university. When you ask students today, they just expect those things that I just mentioned. What's forefront in their mind is, are they going to get a job? And are they going to be able to pay off any loans that they had to go to university, as opposed to having the taxpayers pay them off, which is a big debate going on at a national level at this point. The best way that they can show that their return on investment, not only financially, but also in time, is that they are going to score well in terms of that ROI. So the last number of years, University Georgetown has put out an annual report of all 4,500 colleges and universities in this country. And they evaluate them not on, can you park bicycles on your campus, or some of those other, quite frankly, irrelevant types of metrics that these rankings sometimes use. but rather, did you actually go on to live a life that would actually show a financial return? Northwood University ranks in the top 11% of all colleges and universities in the country, which tells us that we are providing a relevant education. In other words, students are learning what employers want, and that they're going out and getting employment and earning a good living. So that's a significant data point for us, and it's also a corollary to another data point that I'll often use in different discussions, and that is, I know of no university that a third of its graduates own or co-own their own company. That is, as far as I can tell, a completely unmatched number, and I think it's a testament to the type of confidence and ecosystem that we have on this campus to say, why not you? If you have a dream and you want to design jackets and shirts, you want to have a construction company, you want to be in the automotive business, why not you? Why can't you be one of those people who own or co-own your own company? And if you're not, we still provide exemplary experiential learning and leadership development programs that have also allowed our graduates to go on and do great things. So the big question that you probably are asking is, all right, that sounds good. How can I help? And look, we do not have the deep pockets, particularly that the big public taxpayer-funded institutions have. So we recognize that we lean heavily on the 60,000 or so alumni that Northwood has produced over the years. And it's a important question for you to be asking is, so what's my role? How can I pay forward? Because if you look at most of our university students today, they are receiving some type of support, scholarship support, probably similar to many people on this call. So there's a couple of things that I would say to you. And this is I call it the dirty little secret of how to run a university, and it's actually quite simple. You need to do two things better than other people. You need to find a way to attract great faculty who want to come and be on this campus, like the Watts, like the Haywoods, like the Nashes, and get those people in front of our students. So we need to attract great faculty, and great faculty are looking for great students. And when you put those two things together, magic happens on a university campus. So I have two priorities, and it's something that I'm asking you personally to get involved with. And we recognize that people are on a different spectrum in terms of what they can give back to their alma mater, but I suspect that every single person on this call knows of somebody who believes in these fundamental tenets of free enterprise, personal responsibility, limited government in our lives, or the Northwood idea. So the first priority is, number one, is to establish more endowed chairs. An endowed chair is a individual who is funded by an endowment, a gift to the university. And by having endowed chairs, we will then be able to compete against, again, mostly the big publics that pay significant more in some cases to some of their top faculty. My hope is that we will have the resources to attract the very best teaching faculty, research faculty that we possibly can. So raising money, putting those dollars in an endowment, and going out and finding the best talent like you would be doing in your day-to-day work. That's the number one priority. Number two is to match those great faculty with great students. And I'm convinced that there are many young people from every demographic in this country that would love a Northwood University experience. The reality is that many of them can't afford it, and they have to settle for something less. And so if we can collectively increase the number of scholarships available for students, and we can allow those dollars to have these individuals who all come forward with a hope and a dream, to attend Northwood regardless of their financial background. Not only is that a life-changing thing that we do for these individuals, but it also allows us to attract the very best students regardless of what their economic background is. And so the secret of this major fundraising focus that I have right now, so that our faculty have the best students, our students have the best faculty, is what we're really focused on, so that we can continue to see what we have been able to do over the last few years. Balanced budget, no debt, strong cash flow position, increase enrollment in our graduate and undergraduate and our online activity, increasing our footprint around the world. This is going to be an incredible story, and as I read earlier, it's a grand idea indeed that those two young men, one less than 30, one having just turned 30, that they had when they bought the Wright Mansion in Alma, Michigan, and they launched Northwood in 1959. So we are on the right path. I look forward to seeing all of you, I hope, on campus, if not at Auto Show at some other time. And again, I appeal to all of you on the call. If it's one less coffee, if it's a commitment of $100 for the next 5 years for $500, if it's a commitment of $10,000 per year for the next 5 years, or whatever you can do, if I could ask you to think about giving back to Northwood. And number two is look around your community and say, young person, you deserve a Northwood education. You got to go check this place out, because it's a unique and remarkable and different university that's doing great things up in beautiful Midland. So with that, I'll stop, and thank you very much for joining, and I'll turn it back to you, Julie.
Thank you, Dr. MacDonald, for sharing your insight. I know I'm pretty excited to be part of the future of Northwood, and of course honored to be an alumni of this awesome institution. The Q&A is now open, so if you have a question, please type it in the right-hand column. And I do have one question that I already answered, but we'll share it with the group. Lori asked, do we know the percentage of legacy students that have graduated from Northwood? How many are currently attending? I don't have the number of legacy alumni who are grads, but we can certainly get that for you. I do know that 22 legacy students joined us last fall, and it's looking, we're expecting 24 legacy students to join us this fall, which is slowly increased over the past 10 years. So our legacy students are a great addition. Christopher, is there a major that is attracting the most undergraduate students to campus?
Yeah. So thanks for the data, Julie, on the legacy. And Lori, great question. Imagine if we could have every alumni, if it's not their child, maybe it's a relative or a neighbor, could direct someone to Northwood. That would be a remarkable success. Chris, I hope you're well. Good to see you back in Michigan, 3 or 4 weeks ago. Chris, the big ones are finance, accounting, supply chain management is growing. Sport management is also significant growth. And then at the graduate level, we continue to see really good numbers in our MBA program. So those are the biggest growth areas. I will say that we have just launched a merchandising program that came out of our fashion program. And that's taking on really early remarkable success. There's so many young people today, including 2 football players who just joined us, who are going into the merchandising program, where they just have this idea. It could be shoes, hats, t-shirts, it could be some other types of merchandise that with all the online purchasing, everything used to be contained. You had to go to a big store. They control the products, they control the distribution. Now, particularly with online, it liberates all of that, and so that's those numbers are still small, but we're looking forward to see that growth. I'll also, if there's a theme, Chris, is business continues to be our mainstay, but as the academic area led by Dr. Stayhauer, they continue to bridge these kind of ancillary or adjacency programs that have a strong business focus, but they have a lot more technology orientation, cybersecurity, computer programming, science, that kind of thing as well. So thanks for that question. Back to you, Julie.
Okay, next question. Are you seeing alumni returning for advanced degrees, master's, doctorate?
Yeah, so we are seeing that, more and more people, for a variety of reasons, both practical, societal, are realizing that they are in a position to take graduate programs. So a number of our growth in our DeVos Graduate School of Management are alumni. We're also hoping to get more non-Northwood people in that program, so extending that out is important. I also see, so thanks, Sandra. Melanie, also see a great question for the aftermarket program. In fact, we're in the process, maybe you could help us, of hiring a dedicated marketer for automotive and aftermarket. We've seen an increase in enrollment in both of those programs. We have about 130 automotive and aftermarket students, so we're starting to see a growth in there again. And in our current fundraising activities, we're putting more and more efforts on what we're calling our automotive and mobility studies focus, and you're going to hear a lot more about this going forward. We also have hired a terrific new leader in the aftermarket program that's overseeing both our aftermarket undergrad program and our university aftermarket activity. That's Thomas, Dr. Litzinger is leading that. The last point I'll say is through these endowed professorships, we are currently in the process of hiring through a fund from New England of Subaru, a new professor that is going to be overseeing automotive strategy, and that will be the New England of Subaru professor in automotive strategy. So more talent in the classroom and more funding for scholarships to attract more students into those programs. Julie, maybe I'll just, because I can see these as well, if I, yeah, so Andre, national programs, thoughts. We have explored Latin America, Andre. I think it's a really important point. We saw what happened in Ecuador just yesterday with a more conservative type of politician, that the tragedy. We do have efforts going on in Mexico right now, and but I'll take that away and speak with Dr. Lewis and Dr. Reeves about that. If you have any thought around a particular market, certainly part of the BRIC countries, Brazil being one of those, I think there's opportunity. But I have had some experience in some of the Central American countries as well over the years, Costa Rica being one and Panama being another. So Andre, if you have some thinking around it, if you could reach out, because you see on my screen, I have left social media tag there, my email, but also my cell phone number. I tend to text more than anything, so if you have any ideas, you have my cell phone, just send me a note. I'd appreciate it. What's the ideal number of traditional students? We think it's about 1,500, and where that number comes from, we'll have about 1,250 or so this year. We can go more than 1,500, but at 1,500, we do not need more infrastructure. So we don't need more residences, classrooms, counseling space, cafeteria space, and so that's a number that we're actually aimed at right now. In our strategic plan, we want to hit a number of 8,000 different learners. That includes online, international, graduate, and undergraduate. So I'm not sure who asked that question, but it's a great question. Chris, I hope you're well. What can you do with our local communities to support Northwood outside of financial, connecting recruiters? If we could have people having conversations about Northwood, having people coming onto our campus, including some of our freedom concerts, getting to know us better, attending auto show, opening up doors. That I think that would be the best thing that individuals could do, is just slow life down a little bit and say, look at, have you given thought to Northwood, particularly Chris, from our local communities? There's so many people who live in Midland who haven't been on this campus. So and directing them to us, Susie Poley-Smith, Matt Bennett, are two people leading our graduate enrollment and our undergraduate enrollment. Not only them, but all of us would like to have those conversations. You're going to hear more. I'm trying to use the phrase that the Northwood is Midlands University, and if we could get more people to understand what it is that we do here, that would be great. There's a shout out for Jeff Stauffer. He was on campus not long ago, and I look forward to seeing Jeff back on campus at Auto Show. We have a very, very important revealing of a beautiful piece of art that actually commemorates our 4 founders. So that'll be in Founders Garden. I believe it's on the Friday morning, but you can look on the website for that, and Jeff will be there. Nick, admissions department. So, Nick, it's a great question, particularly the current state of affairs in some of our schools and school boards. This is a longer answer, but I can tell you that we're stratifying the state, the types of schools. We're putting more and more efforts on homeschooled individuals, charter, private schools, but it's part of our broader marketing efforts. Maybe I could have Murray Kite and Rachel Valdezeri come on to one of these, Julie, to talk about some of the marketing and communications efforts. We now have a communications office because the traditional marketing approaches, we think that we can be more effective through different avenues. So Nick, maybe you could reach out and we could explain more about your very good question. Thoughts on the data analytics program? Will this be a major study? I wish I could answer that other than we have seen nice growth in data analytics. We have doing more in the graduate school there, and that would be something that our academic area would have to just monitor and move that forward. But we capture all this, and we'll share that with Dr. Stayhauer. Julie, did I miss?
I don't think so. I think we've covered all questions. I see there are a few comments in the event chat. Founders dedication is on Saturday morning, October 7th during Auto Show. So if you're here for Auto Show,
okay,
we are dedicating that.
Well, and if I could just point out, Lori, thank you. I just want to reiterate that that when we have as many graduates in 64 years as some of the big publics have students on their campus today. So I'll say that again. In our 60 plus years, we have the same number of graduates as some of these big schools have students on their campus today. That we lean heavily on fewer people. So when I read things, you know, like Lori saying, I'm going to double my contribution, it's hard to put in words how thankful we are for that. And I'm wondering with my tongue firmly in my cheek if I catch you on some cruise somewhere as you write that. Lit is a great supporter and an incredible role model for anyone who wants to be in marketing. So your role in the Northwood idea, Lit, is to continue to embrace and be clear on what the Northwood idea is, and in my view, it's the fundamental foundation upon which the country was created through that revolution so many years ago. And the fact that you are encouraging others like you have to free up some of your scarce resources, everyone, in order to make a Northwood experience possible. And I'll tell you, with Murray Kite and Justin Marshall and the advancement group, every amount of gift is important. And we like to say, every alum, any amount, every year, if we could all do that, that will make a huge difference, and we'll have people reading about us to say, what the heck is going on up there in Midland, that they're growing and while others are faltering. So Lit, thank you for your support. The Founders Day, Lorian, just down. Oh, and I see Justin as a note to Lit. So thanks, Justin, for pointing that message out to Lit as well. My last thing, Julie, I'll just go back to the Q&A and scroll if there's any more there. I thought maybe one more came in. I don't see any more. So look, I went over, and I apologize, mea culpa, but it's very easy for me to speak passionately about this university. This country needs more Northwood graduates. We are at that time of history that I think is very similar to when the Stoffers and the Turners were worried back on January 1st and January 5th of 1959. And I hold out hope that people who are graduating from this university can have a huge impact on making sure that we all remember what has made America so successful. And it's not through big government and socialism. It's been through liberating the talents of every individual. So with that, Julie, I'll stop. And I encourage you to reach out if someone has any advice. We're not experts, but we're trying really hard to make sure that you're proud of your alma mater. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone, and be sure to check your inboxes. We'll be sending you a survey, so you can share more thoughts with us via our survey. We'll also give you more ideas on how you can help us. So thanks again, and look forward to seeing you at our next webinar in September.
Have a great day, everyone.